Rube, it's time for Stay or Go. We're going to get through a few positions here, and I want to start with cornerback, and we'll go alphabetically, and we'll kind of ping pong these back and forth a little bit. That's the first ping pong of the day. I held it until right now. Tay Gowan, part of the return from Zach Ertz. Didn't see him much this year, but he was a 6th-round pick out of UCF. What's your gut telling you here?
Yeah, and he was one of that whole group of young corners that Howie just kind of accumulated starting in the summer and really starting in the spring and through the year. He just wanted to get a bunch of guys in here and get a look at him at practice. He's got good size. He was a draft pick. At some point he was pretty highly regarded. Honestly, we haven't seen him, like you said, and that's true for several of these guys. We really just haven't seen much of them. One of them might make the team, but look, I think they're going to draft a corner. I think they're going to draft a corner pretty high, most likely, possibly in the first round. I would guess in the first round. And I think that guy will be a starter. And, you have Slay, you have Maddox. I don't want to get too far into our other guys, but I just don't see a lot of these guys getting an honest chance to make the 53. I think a guy like Tay Gowan will be in camp. But beyond that, I would say he goes.
I have him staying. Of the group of these young guys, he's the one I like the most. He's the one I kind of liked coming out of UCF. He does have length. I think he can fit in their zone scheme a little bit. And honestly, one day before a game, I saw him walking the field with, it looked like a cape with photos of himself and the name Gowan in big letters on the back. And once I saw that, I was sold. He is back for more. I like him. Of those young guys, he's the one I have staying. So, I agree with you.
Guys, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, of the young guys who aren't Zach Mcpherson, who was a 4th-round pick, of that group, the other group, I have him as the guy staying.
Yeah, I think he's most likely out of that group, but I still have him going.
Sure. The next one's Craig James, who I have him going. I'm sure you do too. He was a special teamer for a while. They were high on Craig James not that long ago with the previous staff, but really fell out of favor. He was on the practice squad a little bit, didn't even play this year. Kind of a strange deal with him. He looked like he was going to be a centerpiece of their special teams at least, and he's fallen way off.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think he's here. But you're right. Yeah, there was a point where he was going into the season as a 3rd corner, I think in 19, I guess it was. But
yeah, that was when they cut Sidney Jones, the former 2nd-round pick, and they cut Rasul Douglas, the former 3rd-round pick.
Second team All-Pro Rasul Douglas. He got 1 vote, I think. But Craig James is gone.
Yeah. Next one is Avante Maddox, who really had a great year, and he earned a contract. 3 years, $22.5 million, deserving contract. As long as he stays inside, he's a really good player. You just can't make him play outside and make him CB2.
Yeah, and I think those days are gone. I think this staff understands his strengths and his weaknesses and what he does well. And he's just a tough inside player. He's a good tackler. He can cover. I thought he might have been their 2nd best defensive player this year, top to bottom, all things considered, behind Slay. I just think Maddox was so consistent. Even though he wasn't a starter, he played the 5th most snaps on defense, which just tells you,
I hate that he's not considered a starter. It's so stupid.
Yeah, no, to me, he's a starter. I mean, his contract is a starter contract, kind of. But he's so valuable, and he just adds so much toughness to the defense. He doesn't miss tackles. And, the thing with him is staying healthy. And this year he was able to. So, you worry about that because he's not the biggest guy, but really like his game, like where he is.
Yeah. And with Slay there, I mean, they have Slay travel with top corners. And one thing teams will do, the one thing Slay doesn't do, he doesn't travel inside. So at least with the Eagles, he hasn't done it. He hasn't played the nickel spot when, Mike Evans or Keenan Allen or someone will slide inside. Slay doesn't go with them. So teams will try to hide a receiver from Slay, and the way they'll do that is they'll put him inside. But when you have Maddox there, it really does help.
Yeah, no doubt. Some guys can play both. He's a strict inside corner, and he's really good at it.
Yeah. Next one is Mccain the third, who the Eagles and Broncos really had a tug of war with this kid all year. It was back and forth, back and forth. He ended up with the Eagles. The music stopped and he was here. So he signs a futures deal. And I got 2 childhood games in there. That was pretty cool. But he's here.
I almost got a Grateful Dead reference, and I was going to say the music never stopped, but I'm not going to go there.
Special teamer. I mean, he played a little bit of special teams with them. Didn't really do much else. Uphill battle. He's another one of those young guys in the Tay Gowan class.
Yeah, he's a poor man's Tay Gowan. I think Eagles already cut him once, brought him back. Broncos cut him twice. He's, until I see him do something in camp, and we'll see all these guys. I assume all of them will be in training camp, or most of them. But until I see him do something, he's gone.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, the next one is Zach Mcpherson, 4th round pick out of Texas Tech. Didn't get a chance to play very much on defense because the guys in front of him, for the most part, stayed healthy. But there are a few moments where Slay had to leave a game for a little bit. Nelson missed a series or two, and Mcpherson went out there and he held his own. Now, we don't know how he would play in a full game, but I was impressed by that. And then on special teams, he was pretty good. He ended up playing the most special team snaps of anyone on the team. He was their top gunner by the end of the year. So, yeah, he's clearly back, and he's off to a good start.
He'll never be my top gunner, though. 4th round pick. I don't think he'll ever be a full-time outside corner, but he'll be around. I mean, he is good on special teams, and he showed this year as a rookie, as a raw 4th round pick, that he could, he could get you through a couple series. It wasn't always pretty. He got beat a couple times. Quarterbacks, when a corner goes out, man, they're going to pick on whoever that new number is, and they do, and they did. And he gave up a couple of plays, but I thought he battled. I thought he showed some good things, and like you said, he's really tough on special teams. So he's not going anywhere. And I don't think ideally next year he would be the 3rd corner. We'll see what happens. But he showed a little bit this year. He'll be back.
Yeah. The next one is Steven Nelson, who ended up being a really nice signing. 1 year, $3 million. Did everything they asked him to do. It wasn't great, but he was solid, and he allowed Maddox to move inside. Do you think he's has any shot to be back?
Any shot? I guess, because you never know what's going to happen in the draft. Maybe the guys they want aren't available. They get taken. They don't get the corner they wanted. Maybe he doesn't get the interest in free agency that he was looking for. But I think that's unlikely. I think it makes sense for them. I don't know if you want to go into a season with 2 corners who are 29 and 31, as well as they played this year. You got to get younger and faster, more athletic at corner. And so I think it makes sense for them to get younger and cheaper, because he's going to get a good contract. He's a solid cornerback, and they make money. And I don't think the Eagles are in a place financially and football wise where they want to, get into a bidding war for a 29-year-old corner who's going to get a long-term deal, most likely. So I really think I just don't see a lot of scenarios where he's back.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think maybe if he ends up being unsigned into the summer and they're like, man, we can really get him at a discount, maybe then, but it would have to be something like this year but this year was different because he was released late. So he didn't have that initial waiver for agency. Teams already filled those holes. So
Right.
There weren't as many landing spots for him. It was kind of a unique situation in that way. So I'm with you. I think he's gone. All right,
But he did play well this year.
He did, yeah. And only a few more here. Josiah Scott, the nickel corner, the Eagles got him in a trade in May. I actually have him staying. And I think he's their backup nickel. I think it's a decent spot. He's a good special teamer. He ended up being active for the final playoff game, or the playoff game, I should say. I kind of like him. We haven't seen him play a ton yet, but they traded for him for a reason.
Yeah, I kept him too. There's something about him I like. He's physical, and he just shows up. You just notice him. When he's out there, you notice him, and want to see him in camp. I think he's got a chance to I think he's got a chance to make the team next year.
I thought he looked pretty good in camp last year.
Yeah.
I mean, his nickname is the Gnat, and it was easy to see why. He's sticky and he's feisty and he's not big, but he plays pretty tough.
Feisty is a good word for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what you want in a slot. So, especially with Maddox's injury history, you want somebody who can go in there and be physical and run around and hit some guys. So he's got a shot.
Yeah. Next one is Darius Slay. He's obviously coming back. What'd you make of him this year? He was pretty darn good in 2021. I mean, he deserved more consideration for All-Pro.
Yeah, I kept him as well. Yeah, I was really impressed with him. He's a fun guy to watch. He's a fun guy to be around. He's a fun guy in interviews. He backed it up. And, last year I thought he played well, but the big plays weren't really there. This year he made them. And I'd still like to see that interception total get higher. He got his hands on maybe 2 or 3 balls that he just, couldn't finish the play. He's good enough to be a 5 or 6 interception guy. He's done that once in his career, but man, this team's been allergic to interceptions the last few years. But I really like Slay's game. He's, this team's got a real history of big time corners, like Lito and Sheldon and Asante, that all had good personalities too. I mean, he does remind me a little of Asante just in his personality, his ego. But I'm a big fan of Slay. It's fun. It's fun having him on the team.
Yeah. Sometimes I think you need that as a corner.
Yeah. Yeah. Corners and wide receivers need that little edge. So yeah, he's you wonder, I mean, he's 31 and he's at the age where you get a little concerned about corners dropping off. I don't think he showed any sign of that this year. So you hope he can keep that up next year.
Yeah, they have him under contract for a couple more years, so we'll see what happens there. But he's definitely back this year. And the last one is Carrie Vincent Jr., another one of those guys in that young stable of corners. He'll be here in camp, and I had Tay Gowan staying. I have him going, but it could easily flip if he outplays him in camp. And I think that's kind of what they're looking at. They're just going to bring all these guys in and let them compete, and that last spot or two on the depth chart is up for grabs.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense. I kind of like it. And, you see, it's like you throw them all against the wall and see who sticks. And maybe one of them's a keeper. They don't cost you anything. Doesn't cost you anything to put in a waiver claim or sign a guy off the street. So, we haven't seen Carrie Vincent Jr. The bloodlines are really strong with his uncle Troy. No, I'm kidding. He's not related to Troy Vincent as far as I know, but he's another one that, I mean, this will be one of the big storylines going into training camp. Will be the young corners who rises from the pack, and it's going to be fun to watch. All
right, next up, we'll go to running backs, and we'll start with Kenny Gainwell. I was really impressed by him. It was kind of a strange season for him, Rube, up and down, and he was inactive for a game in the middle there, but overall, I think the arrow is pointing up on him.
Big time. I was really impressed to have a 5th round rookie do what he did, both as a runner and a receiver. I'd like to see a bigger role for him next year. He's definitely going to be back. These are, Howie's had really good luck in the later rounds. You think about Quez and Mulata and a guy like Gainwell. I think is going to be a bigger part of this offense next year. Can't wait to see where he takes his game.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. The next one, Jordan Howard. It's tough. I really like Jordan Howard, and he brought this physical style back to the Eagles when they were really kind of finding that identity. But the stinger, and then he wasn't the same down the stretch, barely used in the playoffs. He's only 27, but he might just be cooked.
Yeah, I mean, he's had such a strange career. We've talked about the whole career arc. I think you let him go, and then if you need a running back and he's out there, you're happy to bring him back if he's healthy. I just think you're only going to get like 3 or 4 games out of him at this point. It kind of reminds me of Jay Ajayi. He's not. I mean, he doesn't have like a chronic knee like Jay Ajayi had, but it's just like, as talented as he is, how much can you really expect to get out of him? That's why I have him going, because I love the player. I love what he brings to the table. It just doesn't make sense to keep him.
Yeah, I have him going too. I should mention that, but I'm with you. If he's out there and you can sign to the practice squad again, by all
Yeah.
means. I mean, yeah, absolutely. The next one is Jason Huntley, who finally got his chance late in the year and showed some juice, and especially in the kick return game. We liked him in training camp. Gosh, every day he was breaking a big run, but I still have him going because it's tough with the numbers. If you have Miles Sanders and Kenny Gainwell and Boston back, which I do, and then you're probably going to draft one, the numbers game makes it tough because it's tough to keep 5 running backs.
I actually have him back. I have him coming back. Could go either way. Obviously, it's going to depend on the draft. I don't think they're going to draft a running back high enough that the guy will be a lock to be on the 53. So I've got Huntley coming back. And if you draft a guy in the 5th round, maybe he's on the practice squad. We'll see about that. But I got him coming back. I think he's got a little something.
He does. And, when we were talking to Chris Sims about the style of offense and how they should really kind of double down on what they do, thinking about a guy like Jason Huntley in that type of offense, running around with his speed, I get it. I was on the fence about Huntley.
Yeah. I like the ones where we differ. So I'm going to keep him.
All right. Miles Sanders is up next. He would have had a career year in 2021 if he could have stayed healthy, but can't stay healthy.
Which is true for so many running backs. It's really especially, that's why running backs don't get big contracts anymore. I think he's back, and it's not a slam dunk because he's got 1 year left on his deal. I don't know how much trade value he has. He's incredibly gifted. The guy's what did we figure this out? One of only 9 running backs in history to average 5.3 yards a carry in back-to-back years. It's unheard of. He's got one of the highest averages in NFL history as a running back, but he can't stay on the field. But you're not going to find a running back with his ability who can't stay on the field. Those guys don't exist. I think Ezekiel Elliott's and Nick Chubb, I believe, were the only running backs in the league to play every game on offense. So it doesn't happen. So I want him back, and you just try to manage him. You try to keep him healthy, and he's too talented to give up. You're not going to get a lot for him if you do decide to trade him. So I think he's got the most value staying here. And I don't think Gainwell and Scott are. I like both of them. I don't think they're lead backs. Maybe you get you through a game, but Miles has shown he can do it. I thought he ran the ball exceptionally well and showed a lot of growth as a runner. I definitely want him back.
Yeah. And he's cheap in the final year of his rookie contract.
And I still think you can sign him. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you could still re-sign him if he gets off to a good start.
I think they will re-sign him, and I think they'll be able to get him fairly cheap.
Yeah. All right, the last one is Boston Scott. And this is not a slam dunk here because he's a restricted free agent. They have to figure out how they're going to handle this. If you tender him, he's going to come with a price tag of over $2 million if he's back. So they can play the game where they let him test the market, but then you're opening yourself up that you might lose him.
I think they might tender him. This guy scored 7 touchdowns, and we didn't mention that about Gainwell. He scored 7 touchdowns as well. Eagles the first team in like 30 years to have 2 guys score 7 touchdowns on 100 or fewer touches, which is incredible. I think Boston Scott's really good, and I think $2 million is well spent for a guy that gets in the end zone. And every single time you ask him to make a play, he does it. I'm a big fan of his.
I think the Giants should sign him,
just so he doesn't play against them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I have him coming back.
All right. The last position we want to get to is linebackers. Starting alphabetically, we start off with Jannard Avery. I'll let you go first here.
Yeah, he's an interesting one. I've kind of had it with him. He's a guy that he's so unpredictable when he's going to show up and when he's not. When he does, you're like, wow, guy's a playmaker. But then he'll go a month without making a play. I think they need to revamp that linebacker room in a big way, and he doesn't fit into the future as far as I'm concerned.
I figured you were going to say that. I actually have him staying because
I figured you would.
I don't think he's going to be very expensive. I think he was serviceable in that Sam position. I think they could use an upgrade, and if they find the upgrade, great. But I don't have a ton of faith that they're going to put. They might put some resources into the linebacker spot, but I don't know about that Sam position particularly, because that position doesn't play. It's not a 3-down player, so
No.
you sign him for a minimum. I don't think he's going to cost more than that, maybe a little bit more than that, but I would think about bringing him back. I thought he was okay in that role. And if a guy like Patrick Johnson, who was a 7th round pick and played the same position, if he's not like ready to be that, if they don't think he's ready to be that, then I'd bring him back.
That's fair. And, maybe I'm letting my own personal biases. I mean, because we're picking what we think the Eagles will do, not what we would do.
Yeah.
And you could very well be right, and you make a good case for it. But I'm just like over Jannard Avery. I'm ready to move on.
I get it. And we've only talked to Jannard Avery like once. He's been here 3 years now. He talked to us at his locker, which tells you how long ago we talked to Jannard Avery, before a pandemic.
You talked to him at the vet. That's how long it's been.
The next one is Sean Bradley, who I've always wanted to see more on defense, especially when the last couple of years, they were kind of trying all these different combinations. I never gave him a shot, but even if he never plays on defense, he's a hell of a special teamer, and he's back on the team.
Yeah, he's back. Cost controlled, local kid, really good special teamer. And I feel like if he did have to play defense, he'd be okay.
I think so too.
You don't want him to be your everyday starter, but he can get you through a series or two or a game. So he's back.
Yeah. Next one's TJ Edwards. They signed him to a contract extension. It was not really an extension, but it took him out of, he was going to be a restricted free agent. So it took him out of that pool, and it guaranteed that he's back in 2022. So they made our job a little easier here.
Yeah, he'll be back. And, he's an interesting one because I thought he gets the most out of what he has. There's no question about that. Maybe more than anybody on this team. And he really took a big jump this year. I still think maybe a lesser role would be ideal. It depends, what they come up with in the draft. I still think they're going to take a backer in the first round, which I know I'm crazy, but I definitely want him on the team. I definitely think he'll be here. I just think maybe sub packages, we'll see who's here and how best to use him, but I'll take him on my team. And he's a big time hitter. He's gotten so much better. He's really one of the more improved guys on the team. So definitely be back.
Yeah. Next one is Christian Ellis, UDFA from Idaho. I mean, he bounced around a few different teams. He ended with the Eagles. I mean, about as steep an uphill climb as anyone on the roster right now.
I am staying. No, I don't. I have him going. Yeah, Christian Ellis. Best wishes in your future endeavors, Christian.
Yeah. Next one's tough. Patrick Johnson, who 7th round pick. The Eagles really like him, or they liked him when they drafted him. They liked him in training camp. I actually have him going because I think if I have Avery staying, then I have to have Johnson going, because the numbers, if they add one in the draft, which I think they're going to do, it becomes a lot harder to keep Patrick Johnson.
Yeah, I think they're going to add more than one in the draft. So I have him going as well. Yeah. I mean, 7th round pick. It's not like it's not like you have to keep him because you drafted him. I just think they need to revamp this position, and maybe Patrick Johnson will have a great camp and prove me wrong, but got to really get better at this position.
Yeah. Speaking of revamping the position, Alex Singleton, who, led the team in tackles again, didn't really fit.
Just about led the NFL in tackles.
Yeah. But it's a weird spot where he has all these tackles, but did he really play that well in 2021? I'd argue he didn't. He had moments. And I think when the defense changed styles a little bit, he got better. He got better in his second stint as a big time player, but restricted free agent too. So they have to make a decision on him. I have him staying, but I don't think that's a definite.
I'm staying too. I think, again, in a lesser role. We'll see how the tender works out. I think he likes being here. This is a team that took a chance on him when nobody else would, when he was playing in Canada. He's the kind of guy that he wants to help the team. I think I think he's a really good special teamer. And if he's playing a lot less on defense, he'd be even better on special teams. He's a good leader. If you do need a linebacker, he'll go out there and give you an honest effort. So kind of like I expect Edwards to play less. I expect Singleton to play a lot less on defense, but I do think he'll be here.
Okay. The next one is Jacoby Stevens, who, friend of the show, was on the pod last year. It was a tough deal for him. He started to show something last training camp, then he got hurt, and then he got cut, and he was buried on the practice squad all year. He was a safety in college, so we switching positions. They didn't have a plan for how to use him, it didn't look like. I have him gone. I just don't know what to expect from him.
Yeah, I have him gone as well. I was disappointed he was the only rookie that really didn't get in the mix. I guess he played in that last game against Dallas, but
it didn't go well.
It did not go well. I don't want to put too much, into that, but you would think by week 18, you might see a little more. He had a tough time. I have him going. I don't see any reason to think that he'll be here. So I have him going.
Yeah. And the last one is Davion Taylor, who had a really nice jump from year 1 to year 2. And I have him back. Obviously, it was a 3rd-round pick. So either way, he's back. I'm really curious to see what kind of role it's going to be in, because I think the only way he gets better and has any chance to live up to his potential is if he plays. I think he just has to play if you're going to get the most out of him.
Yeah. The issue with him is just staying healthy. He's just hasn't been able to do it. So it's really hard to know what you have. I liked what I saw from him, and he's really different than like TJ Edwards and Alex Singleton, because he's just so athletic and sideline to sideline and running. He's more of an athletic backer than a thumper. He's not a thumper, Dave. I know, every time. Obviously he'll be back. I'm really curious to see. I'd like to see him on the field. Again, a lot of it's going to depend on what they draft, but he would be in my mix in some way at linebacker if he's healthy.
It was such a shame that he got hurt, because he was starting to hit his stride a little bit.
He really was.
A lot of good signs, and he was starting to look like, I see why they took a chance on this raw talent. You can't stay healthy. You got to stay healthy.
Yeah.
You got anything else before we wrap this up?
No.
All right. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, I didn't trust you there. I didn't believe you. If you enjoy the podcast, please rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. Thank you to Chris Sims. That was good stuff. We appreciate his time. That's it. For Rube, I'm Dave. We'll talk to you next time.